great. I just deleted it. Sorry.
Yeah, I think so. Start all over again.
Okay, good. So I'll start right now.
Is it okay?
Yep.
Tim, we are waiting for you. For God's sake, do something.
Well, do something. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
No.
Shut up.
Fuck you.
This is it.
Okay.
By the
go.
way, we don't edit this shit now. So anything you say, can and will be used in evidence against you. Well, I'm going to introduce Laurie Deschene, who I have known. I was telling Olivia off mic before we started. I don't think there's anybody online I've known as long as you. Can you remember when we first met? I think on Stumble Upon.
Yeah, a long time
way
ago.
Back. We're going back. I don't know.
Hold on a minute. You know, she looks very young. You know, I don't think she's 70 years ago. You know.
Fuck you.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So we met a long time ago, and you were in a corporate job at the time, and don't think you were particularly enjoying it. And again, I was saying to Olivia that it's amazing to me. So you're the second person 2 consecutive weeks who I've worked with in a coaching environment who's completely blown past me in terms of their success online.
It's not difficult.
It's not difficult. That's true. Yes. Yeah. She just remained breathing, and therefore she went past me. Yeah. And yeah, I'm intrigued today. I mean, we keep this pretty casual, but you know what you've done with Tiny, and I'm going to say Tiny Buddha. I'm going to stick with the English pronunciation. And by the way, got the book here. I'm going to talk about that because I really, really, really do want to talk about that in a non-sycophantic kind of way. In 3 words, how have you done it? Okay, I'll give him on 3. Go on, you can go.
I did stuff.
You did.
I guess that's the 3 words.
Yeah, that's a great answer. I did stuff. Yeah. Shit happened.
Stuff consistently.
Yeah.
Take that, Tim. Now.
Yeah.
Advice.
You know, I don't know how to answer that question. Really, I suppose that, and that really is the simple. But to flesh it out a little, really, it's just kind of doing one thing at a time. When I think about it, you know, just starting with writing, and then, you know, by virtue of sharing my stories, attracting other writers who wanted to have the same experience of being able to share their stories and have the rewarding experience of knowing it helped people and connecting with readers. And then things just kind of have grown organically from, I mean, it's been 6 years now, and, you know, everything is just sort of really grown naturally by word of mouth. And I think that one thing that I believe has attracted people to Tiny Buddha is that people do share themselves really authentically. I know with me, I'm always the first one to want to say, okay, well, I'm not an expert on living wisely. You know, I'm just a person like everybody, and you know, I have things that I might not want to share, some less flattering traits or stories, but that's the stuff I'm going to share because that's the stuff that I think that's most helpful. And I think that's really representative of the site on as a whole. It's not a place where experts are, you know, sharing their teachings to followers. It's a place where people are sharing their honest stories to help others and themselves. So I think that's really what's attracted people to the site.
So a very, very, you know, obvious question here, but what's your story? Sorry, Laurie, but I don't know your background actually. So you said that you have a book and you share your story. So what's your story?
Well, I guess there are lots
in
of
2 words.
stories.
2 words. Yeah, we get shorter and shorter.
Well, this one of the stories of mine that brought me to the site is that in my younger years, for a really long time, starting at 12, I began struggling with depression and bulimia and low self-esteem, and as a result, really toxic shame that caused me to isolate myself for a long time in fear of being judged and rejected. You know, I struggled with that really from, I'd say, 12 to my mid-20s. So that's a big part of what brought me to the site, wanting to share some of these really difficult times in my life and really wanting to recycle my pain into something that could hopefully be useful to other people. That's the main Tiny Buddha related story.
Well, I'd like to, and I've got to say this, and I don't want to sound, you know, here's the thing, it can be dangerous. It's a little bit like if I do a book review on my site, it's because I love it. So I won't do a book review of a book where I'm like, or I don't really like it, because it's kind of like, what's the point? So I'll write back to the publisher if they sent me a book and I've read it, and I'll just say, I'm just not really that blown away with that. Is there any point in me doing that? It's not going to be good publicity. So it's a little bit like that with this podcast, because Olivier invites people on who he really admires, and I invite people on that I really admire, and we've had some fantastic guests on, and I can remember and we worked together God knows, it must be 6-7 years ago now, whatever, and I can remember when getting sent a copy of Tiny Buddha, the book that you'd written, and I'll be honest, my first response was, it's another book from. It's another. It's
dreadful. This is what you said.
No. It's just more. It's another book from somebody I know, where I feel obligated to read it when I don't really want to.
Yeah.
It's also the only book that I've ever gone out and then bought more copies to give to people I know. And
wow.
I think, and I'm pretty sure I told you this, Laurie. I think did it come out 2012? I'm guessing. I think I had it. I used to do a top 10 self-development books of the year. I had this either 1 or 2, I think, and it may have been 2, because it may be the year that David Rock's Your Brain at Work came out, which is probably my favourite self-development book ever. And I thought it was just a fucking fantastic book. I thought it was written. We had James Altucher, who I'm sure many people who listen will know, who and he gave me some advice and saying, if it doesn't scare you to write it, don't write it. And this must have scared the shit out of you to write it, because you talk about the pain, you talk about when you first went to New York, and all the difficulties that you went through, having no money and so on and so forth. And it's the only book, and I promise you, I'm not just saying this, it's the only book that I've ever bought my wife that she's read. And I've bought a fucking 100. I buy her 1 a week. You've got to read this, and she actually read this. This was on our bedside or on her nightstand it probably took her 6 months, to be fair, but she read it, and I think it's a great book. And I just wonder how much and Olivier's got his head in his hands now,
can I just before you just go with a question, can I just point it out, you just took, I think, 4 minutes in order to make a compliment, just to say I love this book, right? So this is what I'm dealing with
Yeah, this is what he has to deal with on a regular basis.
Okay, can you go to the question or to the thing?
Yeah, the question is, how much is it? No. The question is, how tough was it for you to decide to say, you know what, I'm going to put stuff that people normally. I'm going to be honest with you, people normally feel shame about things like that. And shame to me is a horrible, horrible emotion, because it has no value whatsoever. Guilt can have a value, shame not. But how tough was it for you to just sit down and say, you know what, I'm going to bare my soul, and I don't give a damn what people think, because I think I can help other people by doing that?
I think I've a lot of times in my writing, both for that book, and then I wrote a very, very personal story about, in my second book, in the introduction, about my experience in a residential treatment center for bulimia. And with that story as well, and with a lot of the stories I've shared on my site, I have felt that moment of, oh, do I really want to share this? But usually those are the things I really want to share, because for 2 main reasons. I know that when I share those stories, suddenly I don't feel ashamed of them anymore. I feel proud of what I've done with those things, and that's been really powerful and important and helpful to me. And also, I know that when you share those things, anybody who can relate feels a little less ashamed. And as someone who has felt the very toxic effects of shame, if I can help someone else not have to be as weighed down by that, then I feel proud.
Yeah, cool. So tell us about the new book.
My latest book, it's called Tiny Buddha's 365 Tiny Love Challenges. This one is a little different from the other 2. Well, it's a lot different from the other 2, actually. But the one thing I was thinking to say just now is that it's not quite as personal from me. It does include 70 stories from Tiny Buddha contributors. But what the book really is it's a month worth of things that you can do each day to strengthen your relationships, or create new relationships, or just put love into the world. And each month has a different theme. So there's 1 month on releasing anger and forgiving. So 30 things you can do on a daily basis to release your anger and forgive. And there's 1 month on authenticity and vulnerability. And it was something I wanted to do because I know, relationships have always been a challenge for me, connecting with people. I'm an introvert. I'm a highly sensitive person. Like I said, I isolated myself for a long time. Letting people in has never been my strong suit. So I know how it can affect you when you don't have strong interpersonal relationships, and I know the value of having them. So, and I also know that a lot of people, I think nowadays we have more and more friends online, but that doesn't necessarily mean you have more deep, meaningful connections. So that was why I wanted to do this book. And also I had a lot of fun being able to be creative and coming up with these challenges. 365 is a lot of tasks, activities to come up with.
Yeah. So I am in a relationship with someone who has anger issue. Okay, and I'm being is bold, kind of, English. So and you say that you have these kind of tips or challenges to release angers. What kind of examples can you give us? And I'm not looking at you at all, Tim, at all.
Well, I can't tell because you're glancing to the side because you're on Skype. So, okay, yeah.
Well, some of the anger challenges are really practical things like progressive relaxation, or then there's one challenge that's, every time you think a self-victimizing thought, put something in your purse or pocket. And then as you walk around all day, you'll feel how that weighs you down. At the end of the day, as you take them all out, think, I'm letting go of my anger to feel light and free. So there are lots of different challenges. There are writing exercises, things to help you work through your feelings. And then there are practical things, and some of them are even just reflective challenges.
I'm stealing some of this shit for a blog post, by the way. Okay, so by the way, the second ever blog post I had turned down was from Tiny Buddha.
Really?
Yeah, you turned it down, but you did take it eventually. But I kind of admire that. I don't want to come across as too sycophantic now, which I probably am doing.
Yeah.
I know. Yeah, fuck you, Olivia.
Okay.
But I like that. I like the fact that you don't. It's just like because it's difficult, and I'll do that with my blog. It's just like it's very difficult when there's people that are sending you material, and but you've got a standard to maintain that your readers expect from you, and yours is very you've got a very specific formula of how you do it. It's got to be something that's personal, and I don't want to go into too much detail with this, but you are in certain circles in the blogging, the blogosphere, almost like revered in terms of when we consider. I know. Olivier's doing. Anybody that's listening to this on the podcast, he's doing a fake supplication type thing.
I think we'll put the video on.
But yeah, we'll put the video on. Yeah, but the point of the matter is that there's a lot of sites out there that they just want like a list post. I'm not going to name the names, and I had a blog. Please do. Okay, addicted to success. I can't even say it. Addicted to success. Just list posts. And I spent 5 hours working on a post for that blog, sent it in, they turned it down. I thought, for fun, I'm going to see if I can knock one out in 45 minutes and get it accepted, and did. And whereas with yours, I've had 2 blog posts on yours, and both times you asked me to do some changes. And I kind of, as a writer, respect that. Do you ever feel pressured? I mean, I don't. We're not close friends, Laurie. We're
not.
You
can say that you hate
me
me
a hug. Yeah, you know what I mean. But we've never met or anything.
Right.
And I've, you can tell I've got a lot of admiration for you, and I think you're a super cool person. But do you ever get sent stuff by people that and just like your heart sinks because you've got to turn it down, or do you actually ever take stuff because somebody so well and you don't want to let them down?
I have a hard time with that, both with people I know and with people I don't really know. I always have a hard time turning something down, particularly when people have shared their stories, and if they've written in their email that it would mean a lot to them to be published on the site. It's very hard to say this isn't, quite the right fit. And a lot of times in the past, I did this more in the beginning than I have done recently. But I used to try to make everything work. And I'd spend a lot of time working with people and, adding comments on the side and saying, because there were people who had a story to share, but perhaps they weren't really, not a writer, but maybe they haven't written a lot. And so the idea of, how to tell a story is new to them, or what details might make their story really come to life, or how to find the lessons in the story they shared. So I spent formerly a lot of time helping people do that. The reason I don't do it quite as much these days is because I receive more submissions than I used to. So the time, I don't have as much to do that. But as I'm able, and if I can, particularly if it's somebody who's sending their first post to Tiny Buddha, if I can give them time to help them share their story and present it in a way that will be optimally helpful for readers, I will. Once somebody's had a post on the site, now if they continually send posts that are going to require a lot of effort from me, I might not necessarily always do that. I might be more apt to give someone else the time to get their story on there. But going back to your original question, I definitely find it hard, specifically when it's someone I do know and respect, because I never want to imply, the way you do it doesn't work for me, or the way you did this isn't
good enough.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I wouldn't want to, and I'm a writer as well, and I happen to be a very sensitive person, so I'm always really mindful of. But I do remind myself, though, not everyone's as sensitive as I am. You know what I mean? And also, a lot of people, they're submitting to lots of different sites, and if this isn't going to work, they have other places to send it. And I just try my best to be as respectful and honest as I can in the email, and to always be uplifting with it. This one isn't quite the right fit because I look for this, this, and that, but I really admire how you did this, or I really appreciate this part of your story. Perhaps if you wanted to take this and write a post about that, or I try to be diplomatic and complimentary and respectful of the person, even if that particular post doesn't quite resonate with me. I have published things in the past that my instincts might have originally said not to publish, specifically because I felt that awkwardness. But then I've realized that when I do that, I end up knowing afterwards that really didn't quite resonate with me in the way that it probably should have for me to post it. And to avoid the awkward encounter with one person, I presented that to everyone who's reading.
Right.
So I think I've gotten better at it, but it's still a challenge for me.
Yeah, I normally just send an email back saying, this is shit, can you come up with something better? No, I don't really, but it's interesting though, when you say that, because I got a post yesterday from a woman who's a PhD, and she's a PhD in, I think, psychology. I went to actually did some research, and she's talked about the 21 days to form a habit. And I sent her an email back saying, that's been debunked so heavily, it's just complete nonsense. Is it like 10 minutes of 21 days, or is it an hour of 21 days? All this stuff, it's just, there is no truth behind that whatsoever. And she got in, I said, if you can take that out and smooth the edges, then I think it's a good post. And her reaction was to get a little bit defensive about it. And that's what, so some people really get it and they're grateful and they say, thank you very much, because you are trying to help. But right. Some people get really, really defensive, as like you're attacking them. And that's difficult to deal with. I mean, it really is.
Yeah, especially when you didn't intend to be, insulting or whatever. But I do find that one thing I've noticed is that I've gotten a couple emails from people that have gotten really defensive in the past, and I've been like, whoa, where did that come from?
Right, exactly.
It surprised me, like how, but it's not very common though. I think though some people get frustrated because there are times when I'll receive multiple posts from the same person, and every single post would likely require a lot of work from me, to the extent at which at the end of it would probably be more my writing than theirs, And I don't ever want to say to the person, well, you probably should take a course or something. You know what I mean? Like you could.
You should. But maybe, seriously, maybe you should.
I actually have recently done that a couple times where I said, you know what, there's this really great guest blogging course because after a
John
while,
Morrow,
I could be as complimentary as I can be, but when it comes right down to it, if someone just really could benefit from learning more about writing before they're going to get accepted on any site, it's the kind of thing to do, I think, because they could have great potential, but sometimes you learn a little.
I agree. I went on John Morrow's guest blogging course down in Fort Lauderdale in April, And I've been guest blogging for almost 10 years now, and I still know there's stuff I can learn. You know, and I think if people think they can't learn things, especially when it comes to writing, you know, writing is a craft. It's you never master it. You just get to the point where you just get better and better and better. You know, whatever.
Right.
But so here's what I'd like to ask: how can you disassociate? Can you? So I'm going to mention something now. So I asked you before we started. You know, can I bring anything up? And Laurie now is thinking, holy shit, what's he going to bring up?
Where are we going?
Yeah, exactly. Where we're going with this.
Don't trust him.
So, yeah, don't trust me. You shouldn't have said that. You used to have difficulty at the end of a yoga session doing the meditation. Mm-hmm. Can you do that now?
Yeah, I can do that much more easily now. It used to be, I think it was honestly because crowds make me anxious. And at the end of a yoga class, everybody's getting up and leaving at the same time. Usually, well, you know, I guess it's staggered a little because people tend to sometimes lay in Shavasana a little longer. But for the most part, people are kind of all going toward that main outdoor area at the same time, and they're gathering their shoes or whatever. And I used to find it, well, also because I found it made me anxious to lay down sweaty in a room with all those people. But also, I think when I really think about it, I think a big part of it too was I wanted to get out before anybody else. I didn't want to be in the crowd of people leaving. So that was a big part of it. But I've gotten a lot better at that, I think. Actually, what I do now in most situations like this is I actually just wait till everyone leaves and go after. Because in the beginning, it used to always be I had to beat the crowd, which is why I used to want to always sit at the front of planes. Now I sit on the back, and I wait till everybody leaves. And then I leave. I just don't like being in a massive.
You're one of those. Okay.
Yeah. I just don't like being in a mass of people. At any point, I get incredibly anxious, and I'm short, so most people are taller than me, and I feel claustrophobic, and I just.
You need a life coach.
Oh, forget it. Laurie, I have a question.
A good one. A good one, I meant.
Yeah, a good one. Shut up. Can we back up a second? Actually, what is the objective, or what are you trying to achieve with the site? You know, Tiny Buddha. What is your approach here?
Well, I think that my initial objective has sort of morphed over time as time has gone by and I've grown and what I want personally has changed. But my original goal was I wanted it to be a place where people could feel less alone with their challenges, primarily because I think one of the hardest parts of my struggles was feeling so alone. You know, feeling that shame, that sense of there was something wrong with me because of what I'd been through and that no one would understand. And if they did know, they probably wouldn't love me. And there's a lot of very difficult feelings around feeling alone. So that was my first and primary goal with the site. And I think that is still a goal, but I have other intentions that have, you know, over time come from it of things that I want to do with it. For example, right now my newest goal is, as of next year, I want to start making short films. Not vlogs, so not like me talking. I want to write fictional short films and produce them and share them through Tiny Buddha. So that's my newer goal, is I want to be able to, in addition to facilitating this community for people, I want to create more. I want to do more creative work and hopefully inspire more creative work too.
So you're talking about the community. So how many are we talking about? Is it like a massive amount of people here? Or what's
How many people are in the community?
Yeah, you're talking about the community here. Is it?
Well, the site receives over 4 million views a month.
Wow.
I think it's somewhere around maybe 2.3 million.
Can I just say, just for a reference point here, I get about 1,000 a day, so 30,000, which is pretty good. You know, 4 million a month is like stratospheric. Yeah. Okay. Sorry. Carry on.
That's okay. And I'd say on my social media pages, it's getting close to probably 2 million social media followers. Maybe it's like 1.8 when you combine Twitter, Facebook, and
you exaggerate to you. Yeah.
It's getting there. Well, like, you know, the Facebook page, it's interesting. I was on Twitter for, I think, 1 or 2 years before I had a Facebook page for Tiny Buddha. And the Facebook page is now double the following. It grows so much more quickly on Facebook. So was interesting to see. But yeah, so those are the numbers.
So basically what I understand from what you're saying is people share these vulnerability stories and how they overcome their struggles or things like that. Is it correct, or is it?
Yeah, people share their stories. Some people share more than others. There are some posts that are, mostly a story with a couple lines of insight at the end. And then there are some posts where the story is, maybe shorter in the introduction. And it is more of like one of those list posts, like you mentioned, Tim. But I do try to create a balance. And I'm always first, I think that people are always going to love those list posts. People love a nice little list of practical ideas they can apply right now, and they can share and say, look at these 10 great ideas. But, and I do find that those tend to get shared more a lot of times than the ones that are more of a story with, key insights at the end. But I want to be able to share both. What's important to me is that the stories are being shared. And I think the stories are what really pull people. Anybody can look, and I used to do this. I worked for other websites, and I'd create these posts using information from other posts I found online. And anybody can do that. Anybody can just write a list of 10 things without putting any of themselves into it. But I think what makes a post powerful is when it's from your unique perspective. When it's not just sharing what you know, but how did you learn it? What were the blood, sweat, and tears that went into learning that? And then I also think, too, especially if you're a site that's been around a long time and you're publishing a lot of similar posts over and over and over again, a lot of the same ideas become new again through someone else's eyes.
Personally, I'm struggling actually with this list of things, the 10 things that you can do with 7 habits or whatever, there's so many of those coming and it's like overload of information at the end. And what do you do at the end? So I don't know.
I think people think too sometimes, and I've thought this too, that the more the better. Why put 10 things? You put 20 or 30. But if you list a ton of things and you're not really getting into any of them in depth, and there's no personal experience tied to anything, well, then it just becomes a really, really long list of things you feel you have to do. But I feel like if you can list even just a few things, but really explain what that was like for you, and
absolutely,
then it can be so much more powerful because you have an example, and it's not just, a list anyone could have written of just knowledge you've acquired. It's the wisdom you've acquired from your own life experience.
Right. And that's, why did I like that? Because it was about you and your experiences. It was about what happened to you when you went to New York, and you when you got no money, and it's like then it becomes relatable. It's like there's a lot of sites now where it's just like, I've had 2 blog posts that have had over 1 million views. Okay. And both of them were motivational quotes. And it's just like, it's like the McDonald's of blogging to me. It's like the cheap hit. They're like, this feels great for a moment and I can do this. And I think quotes can be fantastic if they're used minimally and to make a point. And the point that I'm trying to make now is how you use them at the beginning of a post to, emphasize what it is the person that's writing about, rather than just a list. So both of my posts that went over 1 million were just lists of quotes that basically I gave my interpretation of. And then I had a third one that's about 750,000, which was a similar thing with celebrity quotes. And it's kind of like, does this change people's lives? I don't want to be, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I'm guessing you want to change people's lives. Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me, actually, Tim, no, fuck you. I want to make shitloads of money. I want to fucking do it now, and I want, and I'm gonna go to fucking buy a small Caribbean island or something, But I'm guessing you want to do that, right?
I want to touch people's lives, I guess change, but I want people to read something on Tiny Buddha and feel moved. I don't want them to just think about it in their head like, oh yeah, I could do that. I want to touch something primal and emotional in people, because I think everybody wants to be inspired, to feel something. I think when you feel, that's when you're motivated to take action. And so that's what I want to do. And I think that honestly, when I think about what I have to give, I always come back to my emotions, because it's one of those things that's simultaneously my weakness and a strength. I'm a highly emotional person, and that's something I've had to learn to deal with in life. But when I can channel that in the right way to communicate my feelings in a post, and in doing so help someone else maybe better understand their feelings and what they need and want to do, that's something that I feel really good about and really proud of and excited about, because I know how it can affect someone's lives to feel like someone gets how you feel and to know what to do with your feelings.
Yeah, it's so important.
Wow, yeah. I mean, that is really powerful. So let me ask you this. I'm going to give you an hour to chill out. Do whatever you want. But you can't do anything to do with Tiny Buddha. You can't... I'm actually going to remove meditation from the equation. And I'm definitely going to remove TV, because we know that doesn't really chill people out. What are you going to do?
What do I do with an hour to chill out? Well, I guess it depends on the limitations of what I mean, if I'm home, I'd probably take a bath with some mindless reading, to be honest. That's what I do a lot of times when I want.
What does mindless mean? Is that like a trashy novel or something like that?
Well, maybe like a
Your
People
books.
magazine.
Yeah, my books. Shut the fuck up. You shut up. Not my books. We can edit that out. Edit at this point.
Absolutely not. It will be there.
We don't edit. I know. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I also read a lot of, this isn't really mindless reading, but I read a lot of true crime books. I'm fascinated by psychology, and that's something that people probably wouldn't expect or think about, assume about me, but I read a lot of true crime books, and I take a lot of baths. I like to just decompress, and I just read. Honestly, given an hour to chill, I would choose something that has nothing to do with Tiny Buddha. I would. And if I wasn't inside my house and I had an hour, I would probably want to either be riding my bike, which is something I love to do, or laying at a pool or on the beach, probably with also something mindless to read.
Wow. I love that because I think sometimes I went through a period of about 7 or 8 years where I stopped reading fiction, and I just devoured fiction in my, from late teens to probably early 30s. And I think it really impacts your writing ability when you stop doing that, when you start reading just, so I got into this mindset of just like, oh, it's self-development. And it kind of like, it impacts on your ability to, first of all, it doesn't help you as your ability as a writer. And second of all, it cramps your imagination.
Yeah.
Because there's so much shit that's going on outside. If you think about, and then I know you'll know about the sort of advances that are going on in neuroplasticity and neuroscience in general. That stuff was outside our imagination even 10 years ago. Well, it wasn't for some people, obviously, otherwise it wouldn't have happened. But you know what I mean. But the point of the matter is that we can just read about stuff that's happening now and say, well, okay, that's where it is. But when we read fiction, I think. I went from a period of loving it to really looking down on it to now realizing I actually shot myself in the foot a little bit with my own writing ability by not reading fiction and how people and I'm with you on the psychology thing. When that's woven well into a book, it's phenomenal.
I'm fascinated. I'm always fascinated to read. I think why I'm drawn to these true crime books is because I'm fascinated to read about the backstory of what leads somebody to do something that the average person would just be appalled or shocked that someone could do. And I think it's because I personally believe that there's an explanation in people's stories for everything they do. Yeah. It doesn't condone it, doesn't make it okay, but it explains it. And I'm always curious and fascinated, I'll say again, to know what got someone to that point. I think my strongest drive in life is to understand people. When someone does something I don't get, when someone might be cruel or harsh or judgmental or negative or anything it is that I might find difficult to deal with, I want to understand them, and I want people to want to understand me. So I think that's probably why I like those books so much, because it takes the ununderstandable and breaks it all down so you can try to say, okay, how did this happen? What did that person go through? Regarding self-help books, I don't actually read very many these days at all. I feel like I started to read them when I was 12, and it's been quite a few years since then. And now I just kind of, it has to be something very, very different to grab my interest, because I have consumed so many, because I'm kind of an addictive personality. So when I was reading help books. It wasn't just one every now. It was I'm going to read everything I get my hands on.
What is the best one that you've read, actually? The best self-help book? No, don't. And come on, Laurie.
She doesn't even know what it's called. I've written 9. She's no idea. Tim's, which one? Oh, no.
Happy, Rich, and Happy.
Oh, thank you. Oh, yeah.
See, I have a name.
There you go.
You know, honestly, I can't even begin to even think of which one was the best I've ever read. I've read so, and also so many of the ones I've read are so long ago now that I don't even know if I could remember the parts I love most about them. And I haven't read a lot of self-help books in recent years.
Actually, I'm curious about your opinion on the self-help books. Do you think that they have a value here? Do they really can achieve what they intend to do, like to make a difference and move you there? Have you been impacted yourself by them?
I think what really makes a powerful self-help book is when the writer does, obviously it's what I chose to do, is when the writer shares a lot of their own personal experiences. I think that makes the difference. I know I've read a lot of self-help books where there's really not much about the author other than what their expertise is, you know, the fact that they're a psychiatrist or a psychologist or whatever. And that to me isn't quite as helpful. But I think if someone's willing to really share how they learned their experiences, I guess I'm just regurgitating more of the same stuff here, but that's what I think a self-help book can be really impactful.
No, I think that's a really good point. And I was talking to Olivier earlier on about how much I am enjoying, almost finished Dan Harris's book. I don't know if you know, he's the guy on CBS, Anchorman, and he was the guy that had the panic attack online, and I like it because it's just about him and his, you know, he basically his foray into Buddhism and to meditation and to quiet, and how he went from this really angry sort of young man and to this person that became almost too calm, to then going back to, you know, to trying to get back to sort of balance a scale, so to speak. And I think that's really powerful, and that's one of the reasons why we wanted James Altucher on the show, is because he writes from his heart. And the reason why I like your book is because, you know, it's about you and you bearing your soul, and I think that's really important. And I think too many self-help gurus, and not that I'm lumping you in that group, Laurie, at all, but I think too many of them try to pretend that you know, my life's really nailed on, my life's sorted, and you need to do what I want to do because then your life will. And it doesn't work like that. You know, it's just like we've all got faults. You know, I mean, I had 2 beers before I came on this podcast. It may be quite obvious, you know.
It shows as well.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it may be, but I just, because I haven't got another client today, so I just thought, you know, I'm gonna have a couple of beers with my lunch. So, sorry.
Okay. No, nothing.
Oh, fuck you.
Oh, that's fine. Okay, you meant to say something?
Not really. No. That was it. It was just a general ramble. Yeah.
You know, I always kind of think the same thing, and I wonder to myself, I see these people that present themselves as a really polished after picture, and the implication seems to be I have reached the height of what a person can reach. Right. And I wonder sometimes, is it possible? You know, because I know for me, one of my strongest drives is to be authentic, and I think it's part of it is because I want people to actually like me. I want people to see who I am and decide that they enjoy who I really am. And if you're putting yourself out there in any way that's not authentic, well, how can anybody actually decide that they love you for who you are? But I know for me, if I were to put myself out their way, I would definitely feel like a fraud. Because I'm still human and imperfect, and I always will be. So that's why I'm kind of curious if there really are people out there who truly believe that they have hit the pinnacle of like personal development, and there's nothing, you know, because I don't want to just make the conclusion that these people who do present themselves that way are just kind of lying.
Name names.
You know?
Name names.
Name names.
Yeah. Anyway, why? Because we had a conversation off air before you came on. So if you don't name names, I will.
Yeah, but it's always the same. Okay.
I won't name names, but
okay. I will. Deepak Chopra. Bullshit artist, So I was listening to. This was before we came on air, wasn't it? When I was talking to you about listening to an interview with the Dalai Lama through Dan Harris's book, and he was saying about how he still gets angry. He said, "Do you ever get angry?" He says, "Of course I do." He said, "Well, I was told by Deepak Chopra that if you're enlightened, you don't get angry," and he just chuckled to himself. And this is the thing. It's like, I think one of the biggest problems with and I don't want to say Buddhism because that's unfair. I think it's one of the biggest problems with humanity is the fact that we put people on a pedestal and think we can never attain what they've attained. So for instance, like the Dalai Lama, I can remember seeing an interview with him with, and Laurie, you may have to help me out here, who's probably the most famous female interviewer in the US, Barbara
Walters,
right, exactly. So she interviewed the Dalai Lama, and she said to him, "Do you feel like you're a god?" And his response was, "Well, at the moment I've got a sore throat. I'm not sure that God would have a sore throat, so not really, no." And it's kind of like that, and one of the questions that Dan Harris asked him, which has been reproduced a few times now, is like, well, if science proves Buddhism to be wrong in a certain area, what will Buddhism do? And the Dalai Lama said, well, Buddhism will have to change.
Yeah.
And he said, really? You change? He said, yeah, if we're proved to be wrong, then we will have to change. And it's like, holy shit, how often do you hear that from people of like, I know Buddhism is really more a philosophy than a religion, but how often do you hear that? I think at the moment we're in an amazing phase with, Catholicism. Shut the fuck up.
No, because at the same time you say you have to change, but you know that Buddhism is all about impermanence, right? It's all about change. So if they don't apply themselves,
okay. I accept that. I accept
true.
That. I accept that, but I don't think any religion would deny impermanence. So I don't think so. At the moment we've got here in the US, so as wherever we are today, 25th of September or whatever, we've got the Pope, who is such a fucking cool dude. In my opinion, I'm
have his autograph now.
No, I don't have his autograph. I'm going to try and get him on the podcast.
Yeah, please do.
If we can get him on, that would be really cool because for somebody to come out in his position and like pick the phone up to a woman who. Was it she didn't want to have an abortion or whatever, and her husband divorced her, and to just call her up and say, "This is the Pope." Can you imagine getting that phone call? If you're a Roman Catholic, I mean, I'm not a Roman Catholic. I was married in the Catholic Church. Here's my experience of married in the Catholic Church. You've got to go and meet the priest. Okay, I'll go and meet the priest. Timothy, it's good to see you. Let's have a whiskey and we'll sit down and talk. And then the second meeting, Timothy, you're back again. We'll open the whiskey. We've got some acclaimed. And then third, this went on for 4 meetings. The fifth time he said, "Do you know what, Timothy? I think we'd like to welcome you into the Catholic Church. We really would." It's just like, dude, all we've done is drink fucking whiskey, and now you're ready to welcome me into the Catholic Church. So I got married in a Catholic Church. But the point of the matter is, I have no idea what the point of the matter is.
Get to the point. This is what I'm having every episode, Laurie.
Concerned this will be too structured. I need to know the questions. No, you don't. I'll just.
Okay, so actually, Laurie, I meant to ask you, and this is what I was thinking of. You said that you have millions of followers and you have this community, and really, you mentioned also this. You don't want people to feel lonely anymore, and you try to build this sense of community. And I was wondering, have you ever thought about maybe having meetings, like make people to see each other, to discuss about that, and because it's all about connection. It's fine to read this blog post and feel impacted and inspired to say, but really it's about when you connect with people, this is how you change really and get strong, and you get Have you ever thought of doing this?
That's such a brilliant question. I wish I'd asked that. I'm sorry, I have to come in. Yeah, Great question, mate. You bastard.
You know, actually, I've been just recently thinking about that. A while back, when I'd say maybe 4 years ago, I hosted a meetup here in LA where I live now, and I also lived then, although I didn't live here for a while in between. And the community was much smaller then, but I hosted this really just kind of laid back, casual potluck picnic, and only 10 people came. Like I said, the community was a lot smaller back then, and I did post it on my Facebook page, and I was so psyched to have people come and just have a picnic. And I brought hula hoops and like frisbees, and it was just really chill and laid back. But for some reason, I didn't really. I think I also hosted maybe like one yoga on the beach, and I just got busy with other things and didn't make any more happen. But I've been thinking recently, though, about the fact that I don't necessarily need to be involved in every meetup to have meetups happen through Tiny Buddha. You know, I could facilitate and find people who want to lead meetups in their city and be kind of, you know, just like meetup.com does with people in Tiny Buddha community. So I've actually been thinking about that just recently. So we shall see.
That's what James Altucher does, or Altucher even. He has people forming groups, you know, meetup communities in different cities, and does phenomenally well from it. So, I think, but I also think you could take it on the road. You've got a big enough following now, you could take it on the road. And I know that's kind of scary, maybe, but to say we're going to do, you know, New York, we're going to do it, Chicago, we're going to do LA, and Orlando, of course, because then you feel obligated to invite me. No, she's like, nervous laugh. No, I wouldn't really. Yeah,
sure, Tim. I will invite you.
So, fuck, no way am I going to Orlando. Are you coming to Georgia? Is that near Florida? Yes. No, fuck that shit. I'm not going near Florida. Yeah. No, but seriously, I think you've got, you know, I mean, 10 people to turn up. I know one, I can't name him. I want to name him. I can't. One person who did something similar, who hadn't got anything like the following of you and got no people turn up, and that's discouraging. But I think 10, you know, if it was a while back, that's pretty.
Well, it was good. Like 4 years ago, so it was
fucking hell. Laurie,
quite a while
pull
back.
yourself together. You can do it. You can do it. You
know, honestly, I think what it is that it hasn't been something that I've had my focus in so many different directions over the past. You know, I spent 2.5 years not living anywhere and trying to figure out where I was going to live, where my fiance and I were going to settle down. We were doing a lot of traveling, and I was focusing on other things, really. You know, over the past few years, my involvement in the site has changed a little. I don't write as much as I used to. And I've been trying to figure out what else I want to do, who I want to be besides Laurie, who writes about personal development. And that's why, as I mentioned before, I have a lot of creative things I'm trying to get into. And I think that's probably why I haven't done this, is because I've been trying to figure out who else I am other than the person who runs Tiny Buddha. So where I've been focusing my energy has been on stuff that's not through Tiny Buddha. But I do see there'd be, I think, at least, and I hope there'd be a need and an appreciation for that for people, because I've actually gotten emails recently like, oh, do you do any in-person events? And I think, though, what I would do, nothing, I don't ever think I'd host, I mean, never say never, but I highly doubt I would host like a conference or, you know, some type of workshops or anything structured.
Give me a reason for not doing that.
I just don't want to.
Right,
don't coach her. Don't coach her. That's not a coaching session now.
Shut up. Give me a reason. Give me a reason. I don't want to is not good enough. Give me a reason.
There's no spark in my stomach for it. There's nothing inside me that says I have a burning desire to host a conference, or like workshops. I just you know when you feel in your gut.
Can I challenge you?
What?
Can I challenge you?
Sure can.
Okay. Are you sure there's not a spark there, or are you sure that Olivier's put his head in his hands? For anybody that's listening to this just on podcast and not on video, because I think you could fucking nail that. And I've seen people like Chris Gillibo do that, Scott Dinsmore, who that was horrible for anybody listening, who passed away this last week. So, you know, I've seen people do that and know that you could nail that. If you knew you could nail that and you could impact more people's lives in a shorter space of time, would that not be something you'd be interested in? Or would it be something that you're fearful that you can't do?
No, actually, okay, so I've actually spent a good few years grappling with what I can do versus with what I want to do. This is a topic I've devoted a lot of time and energy to because I've known now as Tiny Boot has grown over these past 6 years that there's so much I could do if I wanted to. I'm sure I could be doing, I've seen people with far smaller communities doing these things. I could be doing probably speaking engagements around the world if I wanted to. I could be hosting live workshops or retreats. There's so many things I could do. And I don't have a fear that I wouldn't be able to or that I'd fail because I can see there's an interest. And I wish that, for a long time, I've wished that I had the burning desire to do it because I knew I could. But I just don't. I think what it is that, like I mentioned, I've been doing personal development work since I was 12. It's quite a long time that my life has revolved around healing and self-growth. And these are all things, of course, I want to embrace for the rest of my life. And I, of course, want to help as many people as I can. But I'm at a point in my life where I'm realizing where I am so much more than personal development. I have a creative side to me that is burning to be explored. So what I really want to do right now, what I'm burning and excited to do, is I want to write children's books and I want to write short films and I want to get up and I want to create. And any time I put into doing these things that I'm just not that excited about because I think maybe I should, and I have thought that at times, I should be doing this. This is the path I'm on. Anytime I would devote to these things just because I think I should would be taking me away from what I have just discovered that I know in my gut I really want to do. I can just feel it, I can feel the difference between... I could ramble on and on, but I put a lot of time and energy into it.
That's fine.
I love that, actually.
I was going to say, I want to pass over to Olivier because he pumped his arms in the air when you said that about writing.
No, but that's
I wasn't being
Shut
sarcastic.
up!
Mate. I wasn't being sarcastic. I was being serious. You obviously got that. So.
No, but because I think this is so important what you just did. You do something at some point, it feels right to you to have done the tiny Buddha, and at some point you just change. You want something else, and you have all the pressure, you have all the success and the followers and and they all tell you, you can even be bigger and you can be massive and famous and all this, and you want something else, which is writing this children's book and things, and I found this. That's a lesson. I think is to
yeah.
It's really,
I'll say never say never. You never know. I reserve the right to decide later in time. I change my mind, but I feel pretty.
You're not allowed to. You can't change your mind. It's all on tape now, and we're going to go. No, look at her. She said she'd never do that, and she now has. Okay. We'll let you off.
I'd have to wake up and feel like, okay, this really feels right. And if it doesn't, then I would just be doing it because I think I should. And then I've grappled with this for a while. I have had guilt about it. But then I thought to myself, well, isn't that what Tiny Buddha is all about, though? Aren't I always telling other people, well, not me personally, but the site as a whole, isn't it always, advising people to follow their gut and do what's right for them and not what they think they should do? And, but like I said, though, I would love to be able to facilitate meetups where other people in different states or cities are hosting and connecting with the other people in the community. I just don't feel like I want to be that, travel around the world guru person.
That we had John Underwood, who is the founder of the Deaf Cafe, which is very, I love this. And what it does, what the Deaf Cafe is about organizing cafe talks, it talks about deaf in cafes, and it does not organize anything himself.
Amazingly
right?
enough.
Yeah. So it's run by itself, right? So yeah.
You said the Deaf Cafe?
Yeah,
Deaf Cafe.
No, not deaf as in you need to speak a bit louder. It's the Deaf Cafe.
It's deaf.
No,
deaf.
Deaf as in people talk about dying. So he basically thinks it's like this taboo subject that is kind of weird because sorry for a spoiler for anybody listening to this, but we're all going to die. I mean, just Google it or whatever. But it's kind of like, but we don't like to talk about it, and we don't because who likes being, reminded of their own mortality? I mean, I'm 10 years older than. More actually. Fuck. I'm more than a decade older than either of you two, and it's not fun being reminded of your own mortality. But it also has a habit of being able to focus on what it is you want to leave behind. You know what I mean? So so for you, Laurie, if that's kids' books, that's amazing. So I remember C.S. Lewis. I grew up with The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, and Narnia, and the Dawn Treader, and the whatever, all those books, and they shaped my life just as much as Think and Grow Rich or whatever. They really did. I mean, they really did. They changed the way I thought about things, and I think it's dead dismissive of people. It can be easy to be dismissive of people, to say, well, it's kids' books. It's like, is it important? You're fucking right, it is. This is what starts their life. This is what the building blocks are built
Well, absolutely. On. I mean, the books they read give them the foundation of their beliefs and, how they see the world. But I will say at the moment, I'm actually focused mostly on the short film stuff. I'm really excited about that, and it's not at all. I'm excited to do some type of writing that then turns into a collaborative in-person project where you have a tangible something other than written words on a page. Mm-hmm. So that's what I'm most passionate about right now. And I've been actually saying this for a couple years now that I wanted to do short films. I've been reading books here and there in short films, and I've yet to do it. So the reason I keep saying this out loud is because I'm trying to force myself to have to do it.
I can do it. I can hire me to make you do it. Yes, I'll pay you this
it's funny, and
money.
I also wrote in my Amazon profile that I'm aspiring children's author. I'm just trying to kind of put things out there that I can't not do the things I've wanted to do, because it would be very tempting to not, and to keep doing kind of the same things I've been doing because they're more familiar. But I really want to do these things. So
you must have had a fantastic life coach, because I would advise that exact same thing. I'm going to steal it. No, I wouldn't have advised it, but I think it is a good idea to put yourself into a position where you almost can't say no. I know I used to say no to public speaking gigs a lot of the time. I'd come up with reasons. In reality, I knew it was because I was scared. So I took the decision to say just yes every time. And so now whenever I get yes, I'll do it. And then if it genuinely doesn't work or whatever, then I can back out or whatever. But at least it kind of puts you into that position where I'm committed now to doing it.
So would you put public speaker on your website, as a service as well, as a challenge?
It is on my website. Are you talking about me or? Are you talking about me? Yeah, it is. It's been on my website forever. Yeah.
Okay.
So, it's interesting because I'm going back to what you
fucking read my website. I've got a partner that hasn't fucking read my website. You complete bastard, Levar.
First, know my name, and then you can insult me, man. Laurie, you wanted to say something.
I was going to say, it's interesting because when you say that about public speaking, and that's another thing for a long time I grappled with, where I thought, well, do I really want this? And I'm just afraid, because I never really felt that interested when I got, I've done a couple of times, and I'm glad I did them because I had something to say, and I'm glad that I have those, the experiences, and that those videos exist online because they very concisely summarize some of my thoughts on certain topics. But I often get asked, and I don't really want to do public speaking. And I thought for a long time, am I just scared? I've asked myself that question you asked me. But then I think about what I feel with the short film stuff, where it's all new to me, and I'm very scared of not doing a good job. And I can feel the difference between that versus, do I want to do public speaking? I think that's like such a good, to be able to have that like compass of, what it feels like when you really want something and you're just scared versus you just don't want it. Because it can be hard to tell the difference.
And when you say
phenomenally hard, it's phenomenally hard, because your brain goes through the whole rationalization phase of why, well, that's not right for me because blah 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 blah, when it really means you know what, I'm a bit scared to do that. And it's phenomenally, as a coach, that's one of the most difficult things to spot, of whether somebody really wants to do something or doesn't want to do something because of fear, So he's grinning like an idiot. Why are you grinning like an idiot?
Nothing. I was just curious, Laurie, about your short film. Is it like documentary, or is it like fictions that you want to do?
I want to create fictional short films. Have you ever seen the short film Validation? It's one of my favorites. It's I don't know if you watch short films, either of you much, but this one happened to go viral, so you may have come across it. But it's a 19-minute short film, and it's this guy who validates parking tickets, but he also validates the people. He'll validate their ticket and then say, "You are great. You're wonderful." And it's just a really uplifting short film. And I'm a huge movie buff. I see movies all the time. In fact, if I had an open window of time and nothing to do, I'd probably say, well, what's playing? I'd go see a movie. And I want to create, in the same way I was talking earlier about, I've enjoyed being able to channel my emotions into writing and to hopefully move and touch people, I hope. I want to be able to do that through film because I have been so moved and touched by films and short films. And I think it's a new way for me of expressing myself because for so long, in the past 6 years, it's all been about, well, what are my stories? But I don't want to share my stories anymore. I want to create stories. And I wanted to hopefully accomplish some of the same things through those stories as I've done by sharing my own. I want to convey these same powerful messages through fiction. And I may even get in front of the camera at some point. I used to be,
yeah.
I know, not talking about my life. I studied acting in college, and I actually went to school for theater and writing. And I haven't performed much, although I did take an acting class last time I lived in LA, and that was interesting. But I once again, I feel like I have so much I could express and so much emotion to share and hopefully channel into something, and that's something I'm considering, so we shall see.
Wow, when I hear the passion, that's really, I have no doubt that you'll succeed here, right? So I have an idea of a fiction, I have an idea of a short term of a fiction. What about the life of a life coach, bold and in Florida? And
anyway, just on that note, I think we should thank Laurie because Olivier's been a dick.
Of course, I'm a dick.
As if anybody would hire a bald, pasty life coach, they would be insane.
Oh, I love you, man.
Yeah, I love you too. I love you too. Thank heavens for little boys. I shouldn't have said that, really, should I, online?
No, you shouldn't.
No, I should have said that. No. I went into I usually read my
really wrong.
Chevalier. And anyway, what about that football game last night? Anyway, Laurie, thank you for joining us. And Laurie came on not knowing what we were going to ask her about. She was generous enough to be okay with that, and you did great, gal.
Oh, thank you. Thank you both for having me.
Thank you.
It was fun.
And yeah, it was definitely fun for me. I'm a fanboy.
And I have to apologize about the coaching, the team's coaching.
Yeah,
he won't charge you, by the way, because it was awful.
Other than that, yeah.
Good. Yeah, I'm glad I won't get an invoice.
Yeah. No, there's not going to be an invoice. I mean, you can invoice us if you want. I mean, that'll be fine. So, thanks very much. Name of your new book.
Tiny Buddha's 365 Tiny Love Challenges, and you can go to tinybuddha.com/lovebook to learn more.
We will put a link through to that at the bottom of the podcast. I will also send it out to my newsletter readers, and if it's even remotely as good as your book, then it's a no-brainer as far as I'm concerned. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you both.
Thank you, Laurie.
Bye.
And we stop.
Laurie, you were awesome. I knew you would be. I knew.
Thank you.
Seriously. I mean, when you sent that, because I got your email yesterday. Let me just stop my recording. I got your email yesterday. Oh God, he's gonna fire up the guitar now. Listen.
No, because now you're Rumble, so I need to